So today I'm going to be sharing a video on how to clean Centerpin reel. This particular brand is the Kingpin, made in England, and the actual model is an Imperial. I've had this reel for a number of years. Very similar principles across the board for all Centerpin reels. This particular Centerpin is slightly different in that it's got on the very outside of the spool an actual screw, nicely machined screw that you take off. Okay. To remove the front spool. A quick reminder or hint: when you're cleaning your spools, I really suggest that you take down a clean white paper towel and work on that in the event a screw like this goes missing. At least it's very clean and evidently you can see it. Some reels have smaller screws. If you're using a dark background, sometimes they get hidden. You look around, you lose things. So paper towel in the background, nice. The first thing you do when you take this pin off, this center cap off, is you're exposing the outside bearing. And if this bearing doesn't come off or pop out easily, gently pulling apart the spool from the back plate, you will see another bearing on the inside of the spool and the inside back plate. Some of the big issues around all center pins is if you're dunking your pin in water, which is not recommended, or over time dirt starts to collect, it comes through this lip. Here, for example, dust or dirt can get caught in here, in your hands, you're palming your spool, it can get caught between the spool and the back plate. Anyways, one little grit of sand can often put an end to a nice smooth spin. A culprit or an area to focus in on is, you can see, perhaps you can see there's a little bit of grit right here at the bottom. Usually the moisture ends up settling the grit on the bottom side. But needless to say, I would recommend all parts of the inside spool plate, making sure to really get into the corners of the spool and cleaning off any of the grit. It should be noted that when we put grease in any reel, you want to minimize the amount of grease and oil. The more excess oil that doesn't really have any benefit to the reel movement or the moving parts just collects dirt and particulate matter that eventually gets to the moving parts. So I suggest you do not over grease or over oil any of your reels. So the first thing I like to do after cleaning it is just take a look at the parts and how they move. You can see where the moving parts and how they move are, and that's really where you want to put a little bit of grease. So I use bicycle grease. Place it here, a little bit there, and a little bit there, and that's the extent of how much grease I put on. I also make sure that the actual center post is cleaned off nicely. And let's put that off to the side and focus on the spool itself with the bearings. It's recommended for most Centerpin reels that you use a 3-in-1. Normally, servicing a bearing, the manufacturer suggests sending it in, and that's a good idea. But quite often on trips, I will have multiple requirements to service my reel because I'm not necessarily the most careful. And so in these situations, I do service my reel a lot. This 3-in-1 oil seems to be a popular oil for most center pinners. We just basically take one drop of oil, put it right on that bearing on the inside, flip the reel. We're going to put one drop of oil on that side, and that's pretty much it. Often guys will wipe away a little bit of the grease, or rather the oil, and we're going to gently put this reel back together. very gentle when you put the reel back together. You do not want to bend the center post. And this reel's back together quite nicely. It's rotating beautifully. I will just simply put this center cap back on, crank it down pretty firmly. These reels right here have been known to, these center caps have been known to loosen up during fishing and falling off, and these things are not cheap to replace. So I do recommend that when you crank it firmly, and while on the river, you often check to make sure this thing does not come loose. I have had no issues with this reel since I've owned it, but I have had friends who have had issues. For the reel handles, I would recommend using a canola oil, cooking oil. Take a toothpick, put a little drop on this handle here on the top, and some on the bottom. And give it a spin. Same thing here. Top, bottom. Give it a spin. Let's see how she looks. Looks nice to me. Pretty simple, not that complicated, and a must if you have any grit inside that reel. Hopefully this has been somewhat helpful. If you have any questions, fire me off an email. Be happy to help.